Halt! That bride-to-be is a wanted fugitive, Officer Travis Cole barked, pointing his firearm at Maya. As she stood at the altar, her soon-to-be husband, Isaiah Brooks, spun around. "What did you just declare?" Cole gestured directly at Maya. Maya Denise Williams is sought for a homicide. She's also evading an active inquiry and implicated in fraud, operating under a false persona. A wave of gasps swept through the congregation. "Murder," Maya murmured. Cole advanced further down the aisle. An individual named Leonard Hayes was discovered deceased 3 evenings prior, subsequent to transferring funds into an account linked to you. The officer continued. The perpetrator absconded before law enforcement arrived. "That is an untruth," Maya countered, her voice trembling. "I am unacquainted with any Leonard Hayes." Cole opened the file. "Do you expect all present to credit that?" Isaiah moved to stand beside her.
Officer, refrain from making baseless accusations and present corroboration. Cole produced a printed photograph and held it aloft. The image depicted a woman entering a downtown banking establishment. Though the resolution was poor, the individual shared Maya's stature, physique, complexion, and long dark hair cascaded over one shoulder. A low hum of speculation arose from the pews. "That is not I," Maya stated, her words quivering with apprehension. Cole unfurled another document. The accused affixed the name Maya D. Williams to a financial authorization instrument. The account was established using your date of birth. Furthermore, we located a telephone number on the paperwork that corresponds with a number previously registered to you. "That was my former number," Maya pleaded. "I have not utilized it in years." From the second row, Aunt Denise slowly rose. Her countenance had turned ashen. "Maya, dear, what is he alleging?" Maya turned to her aunt. Aunt Denise, I pledge to you, I am unaware. Cole's voice interjected. The deceased's family asserts he was scheduled to meet a woman who pledged to assist him with an investment opportunity in a county contract. A woman identifying herself as Maya Williams. "That was not me," Maya cried out. A cousin seated near the aisle averted his gaze. Someone whispered, "Heavenly Father, please let this not be true." Another voice, not quite a whisper, declared, "Why would they come here if they possessed no evidence?" The sentiment struck Maya more forcefully than the accusation itself. She surveyed the faces of individuals who had known her for years, people who had shared prayers, meals, and witnessed her growth into the woman standing before them. Now, some regarded her as if she were a stranger concealed within her wedding attire. "No," Maya whispered, tears welling in her eyes. "Do not look at me that way. Please, do not look at me like that." Isaiah clasped her hand. "Maya, look at me." But her gaze remained fixed on the pews, on the seeds of doubt spreading throughout the sanctuary. Aunt Denise covered her mouth. "If there is something you need to disclose to us..." Maya's face contorted. "There is nothing. I have not harmed anyone. I have not pilfered from anyone. I have not evaded anyone. I am being framed. Do you not comprehend me? I am being framed." Cole's expression hardened. "That suffices." "Please," Maya implored, her eyes glistening. "That is not enough. You have labeled me a murderer at my own wedding. Now, even my family scrutinizes me as if I am culpable." Isaiah turned to Cole, his voice measured and low. "You have inflicted sufficient disruption. Present a legitimate court order duly signed by a magistrate." Cole held up the folded document, but when Isaiah reached for it, he withdrew it. "You can review it at the precinct." Reverend Samuel King descended from the pulpit, his Bible still open. "Officer, if you have entered this place of worship under lawful authority, then respect the law. Allow her legal counsel to examine the warrant." Cole barely acknowledged him. "Reverend, this woman is wanted in connection with a homicide." This woman, Reverend King stated firmly, is standing before her church, her family, and her God. Speak with prudence. Maya pressed a hand to her chest, her breathing rapid. Her bouquet trembled, and a single white rose detached itself, falling to the floor. Isaiah leaned toward her. Breathe. They believe I committed it, she whispered. No, they do not. Yes, they do. I can observe it. Uncle Robert, seated near the aisle in a charcoal suit, slowly shook his head. Maya, this defies logic. Why would your name be associated with all of this? I do not know, Maya cried. That is precisely what I am conveying. Cole seized the opportune moment. Individuals offer falsehoods when apprehended. Isaiah stepped forward. And unscrupulous individuals conceal themselves behind official documentation. Cole snapped, Step back! Maya grasped Isaiah's arm. No, please, do not provide them what they have come for. Isaiah looked at her, a conflict of anger and hurt evident on his face, then retreated to her side. Cole observed Marcus Reed, the wedding videographer, still documenting the proceedings from the side aisle. Are you recording this? Marcus swallowed. I was engaged to capture the wedding ceremony. This is now a matter of arrest. Maya turned to Marcus through her tears. Continue recording. Cole's jaw tightened. Maya compelled herself to examine the documents again. Allow me to see the birth date. Cole hesitated, then angled the page sufficiently. Maya observed that the month and day were hers, but the year was off by a single digit. The listed address was a location she had never resided at. The signature bore a resemblance to hers, but the secondary loop of the W was different. That is not my signature, she declared. Cole scoffed. Naturally, it is not. No, examine it. The W is incorrect. My father instructed me on my signature when I was 12 years of age. I have never formed that particular loop. For a moment, silence permeated the room. Maya pointed at the paper. That date is incorrect. That address is incorrect. That signature is poorly replicated. That photograph is not of me. Cole stated, Convey that to the detectives. There are no detectives present. Isaiah declared, Only an individual staging a spectacle. Cole stepped closer. Maya Williams, turn around. I have done nothing wrong. Turn around. Isaiah's voice lowered. Officer, she is cooperating. Then she can cooperate in restraints. A fresh wave of shock rippled through the church. Reverend King raised a hand. Officer Cole. That is uncalled for. Cole ignored him. Maya turned, aware that a single misstep could become the narrative they would later construct. The initial handcuff encircled her wrist with a sharp metallic click. The second followed, and Cole tightened them with unnecessary force. The metal bit into the sensitive skin above an old scar, sending a searing line of pain up her arm. Maya gasped, then straightened her shoulders. That is too tight, Isaiah interjected. Cole did not look at him. They are secure. They are causing her pain. She will survive. Maya blinked through her tears. I am unharmed, she whispered, though she was not. Cole guided her toward the aisle with more coercion than courtesy. Maya proceeded cautiously, but the train of her gown snagged near a pew, and as Cole continued to advance, her hip collided with the polished wood, sending a jolt of pain along her side. A few guests cried out, Be mindful of her attire! Aunt Denise exclaimed. Cole continued his advance. Clear the aisle. At the next narrow turn, Maya's elbow struck another pew, jarring her cuffed wrists. She gritted her teeth and suppressed a cry. Cole tapped the end of his baton against his palm, then against the back of a pew beside her, the sharp wooden sound causing several guests to flinch. Keep moving, he instructed. Maya's face flushed, her wrists throbbed, and her side ached,
yet she walked with her head held high. Mrs. Laverne Dawson began to sob softly. Uncle Robert lowered his head, shame etched across his features. Aunt Denise stepped toward the aisle, but Maya met her gaze and shook her head. Not now. Not like this. At the church doors, Maya paused and turned back as much as the restraints permitted. Her face was tear-streaked, her hands confined behind her, her wedding gown catching the afternoon light. "My name is Maya Williams," she stated, her voice raw but clear. "I did not murder Leonard Hayes. I did not abscond with his funds. I did not evade the authorities. Someone fabricated a falsehood bearing my name, and I will demonstrate it." Cole muttered, "Move." Maya looked at Isaiah. He stood in the aisle holding her bouquet, the white handkerchief wrapped around the stems pressed between his fingers. "The ceremony is not concluded," she declared. "It is merely postponed." Cole then escorted her outside into the bright Georgia sunshine, oblivious that every fabricated document in his folder had just become the initial unraveling thread of a far more extensive deception. The patrol car door slammed shut, severing Maya's connection to the church, the altar, and Isaiah, who stood on the steps with her bouquet in his hand. Cole settled behind the wheel and adjusted the mirror until his gaze met hers. "Still intent on proclaiming your innocence?" Maya glanced down at the restraints digging into her wrists. "I am innocent." "That image bore a strong resemblance to you." "It was designed to," Cole smirked. "You invariably possess a retort." "No," Maya replied, her voice low, "but I recognize a fabrication when it bears my name." He drove her through downtown Briarwood in silence. Through the window, life proceeded normally. A diner displaying a peach cobbler sign, a barber shop with men conversing by the entrance, an American flag snapping above the courthouse. Maya observed it all pass in quiet contemplation, breathing through the discomfort in her wrists. At the Briarwood County Police Department, Cole escorted her through a side entrance. The building carried the aroma of burnt coffee, disinfectant, and aged paper. A poster on the wall proclaimed, "Community Trust commences here." Maya nearly chuckled. Cole led her into a utilitarian interview room and secured one wrist to the metal table. "I request legal representation," she stated. "You will receive your call. I wish for this to be officially documented." Cole deposited the folder before her. "All is documented. That is precisely what concerns me." He leaned over the table. "Identical appellation, identical birth registry, identical past telephone number, identical visage in the photograph. It presents unfavorably for you. The birth year was erroneous. The address was inaccurate. The signature was poorly duplicated." "Close enough," Maya regarded him. "Proximity is not the law." Before Cole could respond, a desk sergeant opened the door. His nameplate read Harlan. He observed Maya's wedding attire, then the restraints. "At a wedding, Cole?" "She sought for homicide." Maya turned to the sergeant. "The warrant information is flawed. I have requested counsel." Harlan looked at Cole. "Is it signed?" Cole hesitated. Harlan's expression shifted. "Cole, it passed through the system," Cole stated. "That is not the inquiry I posed." A knock sounded at the door. Another officer peeked in. "There is a gentleman in the lobby requesting to see her." "Isaiah Brooks," Cole snapped. "Inform him to wait." Maya's chest tightened with relief, but she remained still. Harlan gestured toward the hallway. "Grant her the call." Cole's jaw worked, but he unfastened her from the table and led her to a wall-mounted telephone. Maya dialed Isaiah. He answered immediately. "Maya, I am here." She stated, "Listen, contact Jonathan Reed. The warrant is invalid. Incorrect birth year, incorrect address, questionable signature, ambiguous bank photograph. They admitted me through the service entrance. Are you injured?" She glanced at her wrists. "I am standing." "That is not my question. The restraints were tight." I am quite well. Cole reached for the receiver. Time's expired. Do not sign anything, Isaiah cautioned. I shall not. And Maya? Yes? Maintain your composure. The line went dead. Minutes later, Jonathan Reed entered the interview room, attired in a brown suit, carrying an aged leather satchel. Isaiah stood behind him, still in his wedding attire, still clutching Maya's bouquet. Jonathan examined her wrists, then addressed Cole.
Remove the restraints, Cole stated. She is a suspect in a homicide. Jonathan placed a document on the table. She is being detained based on a flawed system alert with incongruent identifying particulars. If you possess a valid, signed warrant, present it. Cole remained silent. Harlan reappeared in the doorway and looked at Cole. Release her. The restraints were removed. A rush of sensation flooded Maya's hands as circulation returned to her fingers. Isaiah stepped closer, but waited until she extended her hand toward him. Then he gently took her hand. Maya looked at Cole. No apology. Cole closed the folder. This is not concluded. Maya stood, her gown creased, her wrists bearing marks, her voice quiet. No, Officer Cole, it is not. They exited through the main entrance this time. Every officer in the station seemed to look up, then quickly look away. Outside, evening had descended upon Briarwood. Isaiah still held her bouquet. One white rose was absent, but her father's white handkerchief remained tied around the stems. Maya glanced back at the station doors. Someone placed my name within a fabrication. She then added, and I will uncover who held the pen. If you empathize with Maya, please indicate your approval with a like and share your viewing location in the comments. You might connect with others who are following this narrative. Maya remained silent until the vehicle turned back onto the road leading to New Hope Baptist Church. Isaiah drove with both hands firmly on the steering wheel. Jonathan Reed followed in his own automobile. The sky had deepened to a rich Georgia blue, and the church windows glowed softly ahead as if no distressing events had transpired. Maya sat in the passenger seat, her wedding dress pooled in her lap, her wrists resting gingerly on the fabric. Red imprints circled her skin where the restraints had been. Isaiah observed them briefly, then forced his gaze back to the road. I should have intervened, he stated. No, Maya whispered. That was precisely his intention. He sought to provoke you. He wanted to elicit a reaction. He desired more than that. He sought an image of you losing composure. Isaiah's jaw tightened. I nearly obliged him. But you did not. They drove into the church parking lot. Most vehicles had departed. A few elder congregants remained near the entrance, conversing quietly. As Maya exited the vehicle, the conversation ceased. No one was certain whether to approach her or grant her space. Denise stood by the steps, holding a tissue in one hand and her purse in the other. Her eyes were red. Maya, she said softly. Maya paused momentarily. All the pain from the sanctuary resurfaced. The whispers, the doubt, the way her own family had looked at her when Cole held up those documents. Denise's face crumpled. Child, I am so sorry. I should have known better. Maya wanted to assure her aunt that it was acceptable, but it was not. Not yet. You were frightened, Maya stated. That is no justification. No, Maya corrected gently but wearily. It is not. Aunt Denise nodded as if she deserved the reprimand. I love you. Maya's eyes welled up again. I know. Inside the church, the air still carried the scent of lilies and candle wax. The altar remained precisely as they had left it. A single white rose lay on the floor near the front pew. Slightly bruised, programs were strewn across the seats. On the pulpit, Reverend Samuel King's Bible remained open.
Reverend King stood near the altar, awaiting. He did not hasten toward Maya. He did not overwhelm her with pity. He simply opened his arms. Maya stepped into his embrace and finally allowed herself to tremble. "My child," he said softly, "you held your head higher than most individuals ever need to." "I was petrified," she confessed against his shoulder.
Courage often is. Isaiah retrieved the fallen white rose and placed it beside the bouquet. The white handkerchief remained clean, still folded as Maya had arranged it that morning. Maya looked at it and swallowed hard. Father would have detested witnessing this. Reverend King's expression changed. Your father would have detested their actions, but he would not have been surprised. Maya looked up. What do you mean by that? The Reverend walked to a small wooden cabinet beside the choir stand and retrieved a sealed envelope yellowed with age. Maya's name was inscribed on the front in her father's handwriting. He entrusted this to me years ago, Reverend King explained. He instructed me not to deliver it to you unless the system targeted your name. Isaiah looked at Maya, then at the envelope. Maya accepted it with careful fingers. Her wrists ached when she moved, but she opened it nonetheless. Inside was a single folded page. Her father's handwriting was steady and familiar. When they challenge your name, respond with the truth. When they challenge your place, respond by standing firm. Maya read it once, then again. Reverend King spoke softly. Your father believed there were men in this county who weaponized records, spurious alerts, misplaced warrants, veiled threats. He never accumulated sufficient evidence to expose it. Maya's breath slowed. The ache in her wrist seemed to shift to a deeper location. Did he know Benton? Isaiah inquired. The Reverend nodded. He was aware enough to fear what Benton could become. Maya folded the letter but kept it in her hand. Cole possessed documentation, a photograph, my old telephone number, my birth date. Almost. That was not an oversight. No, Isaiah stated. That was premeditated. Jonathan Reed entered quietly from the rear of the church. And whoever orchestrated it anticipated you would panic, sign something, or disappear into custody long enough for the narrative to spread. Maya looked at the aisle where Cole had let her out. The wood still gleamed under the lights. It appeared too ordinary for what had transpired there. They wanted my family to doubt me, she declared. Reverend King's eyes were sorrowful. Doubt is among the most ancient instruments of injustice. It compels individuals to assist in perpetuating a lie before they comprehend it is indeed a fabrication. Maya turned toward the pews. She could still hear Aunt Denise's trembling question. If there is something you need to tell us. It pained her because it originated from love distorted by fear. Isaiah stepped beside her. Tomorrow will alter everything. Maya shook her head. Not if we rush. If we reveal too much too soon, they will term it retribution. Jonathan nodded. Then we proceed with integrity. Every document, every timestamp, every individual who interacted with that alert. Maya looked at her father's letter once more. A peculiar calm settled over her. Not peace, but a sense of purpose. This was meant to be our wedding day, she stated. Isaiah took her hand gently. It still is. She looked at him. He continued. They disrupted the ceremony. They did not interrupt the vows. For the first time since Cole had entered the church, Maya nearly smiled. Reverend King closed the Bible on the pulpit. Some vows are spoken before witnesses. Some are proven before adversaries. Maya placed her father's letter within the bouquet beneath the white handkerchief. Then she faced the church doors. Tomorrow, she declared,
We shall ascertain who inserted my name into that falsehood. Isaiah stood beside her. Jonathan stood behind them. Reverend King bowed his head as if the entire church had transformed into a tribunal of conscience. Outside, Briarwood County slumbered under a tranquil southern night. But within New Hope Baptist Church, Maya Williams was no longer solely a bride whose vows had been interrupted.
She was a woman who had just been handed the initial component of a conflict her father had foreseen. Morning arrived in Briarwood County with a pale golden light that made everything appear more pristine than it was. Maya stood before the bathroom mirror at Isaiah's residence, fastening the final button of her dark blue suit jacket. Her wedding dress hung on the closet door behind her, creased at the hem, no longer flawless. Her wrists still bore marks, thin red circles where Cole's restraints had impressed into her skin. Isaiah appeared in the doorway, already attired in his sheriff's uniform. He remained silent at first. His gaze fell upon her wrists. Maya noticed. "Do not. I did not mention it. You did not have to." He stepped closer. "Are you certain you wish to proceed with this today?" Maya looked at her reflection. 22 years old. Too young, Benton would opine. Too emotional, others would surmise. Too wounded, some would hope. "Yes," she stated. "If I defer, they get to author the opening chapter." Isaiah nodded. "Then we will write it with clarity." Jonathan Reed was already waiting outside in his aged brown sedan. Behind him, 2 black county vehicles idled at the curb. Inside one sat Council Chairwoman Patricia Bell, a woman in her 60s with silver braids, sharp eyes, and no tolerance for men who mistook delay for authority. In the other sat County Attorney Mark Ellis and a representative from Independent Oversight. Maya carried no bouquet this morning, only her father's letter, folded within her jacket pocket. The Briarwood County Police Department presented a different appearance in the daylight. The brick structure stood adjacent to the courthouse's auxiliary building, with an American flag unfurling gently above the entryway. Law enforcement personnel entered and exited, clutching paper cups of coffee, their radios resting on their shoulders, the weariness of the weekend still evident on their faces. Inside, Harold Benton was already presiding over proceedings in the primary conference chamber. He stood at the front, beside a whiteboard, exuding an aura of calm competence in his charcoal suit. Around the expansive table were gathered officers, supervisors, union representatives, and administrative personnel. Officer Travis Cole, arms crossed, leaned against the wall near the rear, his expression rigid, as if anticipating commendation. Benton commenced speaking in a polished tone. "Yesterday's occurrence at New Hope Baptist Church was regrettable. However, I want everyone present to grasp that this department acted based on the intelligence we possessed at that precise moment. We offer no apologies for prioritizing public safety." Cole offered a subtle inclination of his head. Benton continued. "External critique may arise. Emotional responses are to be expected, but we will not permit a single disrupted ceremony to be exploited as a political instrument against this department." The door creaked open, drawing every gaze. Maya entered first. For a fleeting second, Cole appeared annoyed, as if an unauthorized individual had stumbled into a restricted area. Then, Isaiah entered behind her, clad in his full sheriff's regalia. Jonathan Reed followed, and subsequently, Chairwoman Bell. County Attorney Ellis and the oversight representative made their entrance. Benton's expression remained unchanged, yet his grip tightened on the marker. "Miss Williams," he stated with deliberate caution, "this is a private departmental meeting." Chairwoman Bell stepped forward. "Not any longer." The atmosphere in the room shifted perceptibly. Chairs scraped. Someone set down a coffee cup with an audible clatter.
Benton manufactured a smile. Madam Chairwoman, if this pertains to yesterday's events, I assure you it directly concerns yesterday, Bell replied, and today, and the subsequent 4 years of this county's trajectory. Cole's gaze shifted from Bell to Isaiah, then to Maya.
Maya remained silent. Bell opened a file. Effective immediately, Maya Williams shall assume the role of County Police Chief for Briarwood County. Sheriff Isaiah Brooks will be responsible for interagency coordination and county compliance throughout this transition period. An absolute silence permeated the chamber. Cole's face visibly paled. Benton looked at Maya, truly observing her, and for the first time she discerned the calculated intent behind his eyes. Maya moved to the front of the room. Her voice was measured. Yesterday, an individual utilized this department to disrupt my wedding, accuse me of homicide, and present fabricated documents to my family. Today, I am here to ascertain whether that constituted sheer incompetence, outright corruption, or a combination of both. No one stirred. Cole swallowed. You are the newly appointed chief. Maya turned to him. Good morning, Officer Cole. His mouth parted, but no sound emerged. Benton regained his composure first. Chief Williams, with all due respect, any examination of yesterday's incident should be conducted externally. You have a personal stake in this matter. There exists a clear conflict of interest. Maya nodded once. That is precisely why County Attorney Ellis, the independent oversight body, and Sheriff Brooks are present. Every step will be meticulously documented. Every piece of evidence will be preserved. Every action taken will be subject to rigorous review. Benton's smile faltered. That appears to be an excessive measure. Labeling a bride a murderer in a church setting was excessive, Isaiah interjected. Several officers averted their gazes. Maya placed a written directive on the table. Effective immediately. All records pertaining to the alert under my designation are to be frozen, with absolutely no deletion, modification, or reclassification permitted. This mandate encompasses system logs, dispatch records, warrant inquiries, internal communications, body camera metadata, and all access histories for the preceding 72 hours. Benton stated, You cannot simply, I can, Maya responded, and I have. County Attorney Ellis slid another document across the table. The order is legally sound. Cole shifted his weight near the wall. I was acting based on the information received through the system. Maya met his gaze. Then the system will corroborate that fact. His eyes darted towards Benton, a fleeting glance too rapid for most to perceive. Maya, however, noticed. Benton cleared his throat. Officer Cole acted in accordance with standard procedure given the circumstances. No, Maya corrected. Any officer possessing a modicum of discipline would verify a homicide warrant before entering a place of worship during a wedding ceremony. The room collectively held its breath. Cole's jaw clenched. The documents were consistent with your identity. They were close, Maya observed. Proximity is how falsehoods endure long enough to inflict harm. Chairwoman Bell turned to the staff members seated along the wall. You are expected to cooperate fully with Chief Williams and the oversight representative. One administrative employee, situated towards the far end of the table, lowered her eyes. Maya noted her fingers gripping a pen with such force that her knuckles had turned white. Her nameplate read, Grace Holloway. Benton observed Maya's attention drawn to her. His voice adopted a softer, cautionary tone. I would strongly advise everyone present to refrain from conjecture. Reputations can be irrevocably damaged by careless assumptions. Grace's hand froze. Maya looked at Benton. Reputations can also be tarnished by fabricated warrants. The marker in Benton's hand snapped. The sound was minor, but in the profound silence of the room, it resonated like an alarm. Maya addressed the officers. This department serves the populace of Briarwood County, not personal agendas, not clandestine interests, not fear. If yesterday represented an error, we shall meticulously record it. If it constituted misconduct, we shall bring it to light. If it was part of a larger scheme, we will pursue it relentlessly, irrespective of the initial name on any document. For the first time, several officers met her gaze directly. Isaiah stood by the door, his arms at his sides, uttering no words. His presence alone conveyed the message. The sheriff's office was observing. Benton placed the fractured marker down. "And what do you anticipate from us, Chief?" Maya met his gaze. "The truth," she replied, commencing with identifying who introduced my name into that system. No one responded. However, across the room, Grace Holloway's eyes briefly lifted. In her expression, Maya detected a flicker of fear, a hint of recognition, and the initial, delicate indication that someone within these walls was aware of the genesis of the deception. Grace Holloway did not approach Maya within the confines of the conference room. She waited until the gathering dispersed, until Benton departed with Cole at his side, until the other officers began to feign prior engagements. Then, she appeared near the corridor leading to records, a stack of files clutched tightly to her chest. "Chief Williams," she said softly. Maya turned. "Miss Holloway." Grace appeared apprehensive at being addressed by name. She was in her late 40s, with weary eyes, neatly styled hair, and the guarded demeanor of someone who had navigated years in government offices by observing everything and speaking minimally. "Do you have a moment?" Grace inquired. Isaiah, standing beside Maya, studied Grace's face. "Should County Council be present?" Grace swallowed. "Perhaps later." "Not for the initial inquiry." Maya nodded. "Walk with me." They proceeded into the records division, a lengthy chamber lined with metal filing cabinets and humming printers. The air carried the scent of toner, aged paper, and burnt coffee. Grace closed the door but did not secure it. "I have been employed here for 19 years, she stated, long enough to discern the distinction between an isolated error and an ingrained pattern. Maya remained silent. Grace placed the folders on a side table. The alert concerning your name was entered 42 minutes prior to the commencement of the ceremony. Isaiah's eyes narrowed. Before Cole even arrived at the church? Yes. By whom? Maya asked. Grace hesitated. That is the crux of the issue. The login credentials belong to a deactivated administrative account. Mia looked at her. Inactive accounts do not spontaneously reactivate. No, Mom. Grace opened the first folder. Within it were printed screenshots, timestamps, and access logs. The account was utilized from within this facility, specifically from Terminal 3B, a records access station. Whoever accessed it possessed the knowledge to generate an alert that appeared sufficiently official to incite concern, yet lacked the sophistication to withstand thorough scrutiny. Isaiah leaned over the document. Incorrect birth year, incorrect address, outdated telephone number. Grace nodded. Sufficient to identify you in haste, sufficient to falter under pressure. Maya felt a chill permeate the room. Was mine the inaugural instance? Grace looked down. That response was sufficient. She opened the second folder. I began examining comparable cases after your departure last night. I searched for alerts that were rectified within a 48-hour window. Marked as clerical errors involving discrepancies in birth dates, outdated contact numbers, or recycled address information. How many? Isaiah inquired. Grace's voice lowered. At least 26 within the past 5 years. Maya slowly traced the edge of the folder. Who were they? Primarily residents of color, business proprietors, contractors, nurses, real estate agents, individuals with assets to safeguard. Grace's lips tightened, and the timing was consistently peculiar. One alert preceded a loan closing. Another preceded a vote on a city contract.
One occurred before a licensing hearing, and yet another before a church fundraising event where an individual was slated to announce his candidacy. Maya gazed at the pages, names, dates, case numbers, lives reduced to sterile bureaucratic language. What became of them? She asked. Grace took a breath. Some engaged legal counsel and had the matter resolved. Others experienced job loss before it was rectified. Some accepted settlements. A select few simply vanished from the county records thereafter. Isaiah's voice was low. Vanished. In what manner? Relocated. Ceased business operations. Discontinued their pursuits. Maya recalled Cole at the church, holding documents that seemed potent enough to contaminate an entire room. She heard again the whisper from the pews. Why would they arrive here if they possessed no incriminating evidence? Grace continued. Chief Williams, this was not the initial false warrant. It was merely the most conspicuous one. Maya looked up. Why approach me now? Grace's eyes welled, but no tears fell. Because yesterday I observed them perpetrated against someone who possessed the capacity to retaliate. The words landed with significant impact before Maya could respond. Footsteps echoed outside the door. Grace stiffened. Isaiah moved closer to the hallway window. The footsteps continued, then faded into the distance. Grace lowered her voice. Benton meticulously monitors everything within records. He refers to it as quality control, but people grasp its true meaning. Maya questioned, what does it signify?
It signifies that if a file causes embarrassment to the wrong individual, it is altered. If a complaint implicates the wrong officer, it is reclassified. If a citizen pursues an issue too aggressively, something else emerges in their background. Isaiah regarded Maya. That is not simply poor record keeping. That is a systematic operation. Grace nodded. And I contributed to its functioning by remaining silent. Mia's expression softened, but her voice retained its firmness. Fear is not synonymous with guilt. However, from this moment forward, silence becomes a deliberate choice. Grace absorbed the statement. I retained copies, she whispered. Maya's eyes lifted. Copies of what? Access logs, deleted alerts, modification requests, a handful of internal notes, not the entirety, enough to illustrate the pattern. Grace reached into her folder and produced a small sealed envelope. I was uncertain whom to entrust it with. Maya did not immediately accept it. If you entrust that to me, we will proceed with the utmost propriety. Chain of custody, witness verification, whistleblower protections, no clandestine exchanges in hallways that Benton can twist. Grace appeared almost relieved. That is precisely why I approached you. Maya turned to Isaiah. Contact Jonathan. Instruct County Attorney Ellis to have the oversight representative meet us here. Isaiah was already reaching for his phone. Grace exhaled, her shoulders dropping as if she had been bearing a substantial burden for years. Maya gazed with a mixture of pity and resolve at the names within the folder. Did any of these cases involve financial impropriety? Grace hesitated once more. I have no definitive proof. However, following some of the alerts, individuals inquired about private bonding fees. Private bonding fees, Isaiah repeated. Grace nodded. Fees that are not recognized within county policy. Maya's gaze intensified. Who collected them? I am unaware, not officially. Grace glanced toward the closed door, but the same external consultant's name consistently appeared. Before Maya could probe further, the records room door swung open. Harold Benton stood there. His eyes swept from Maya to Isaiah, then to Grace, and finally to the open folders. Well, he remarked smoothly, this appears to be a discussion that should have been formally scheduled. Grace's face drained of color. Maya calmly closed the uppermost folder. Good, you are here. Benton smiled. Am I? Yes, Maya responded. You can elucidate why an inactive account within your department generated a false homicide alert under my designation 42 minutes prior to my wedding for the first time. Benton's smile did not reach his eyes. That sounds like conjecture. Maya held his gaze. Then let us transform it into documented fact. Isaiah moved to her side, phone in hand. County Council is en route, as is oversight. Benton glanced at Grace. His voice softened into an almost solicitous tone. Miss Holloway, exercise caution. Careers have been jeopardized by misinterpretations. Maya moved forward slightly, positioning herself between Benton and Grace. So have lives, she stated. The room fell into a profound silence, punctuated only by the hum of the printer. Benton adjusted his cuffs. Chief Williams, you are new to this environment. I suggest you comprehend the distinction between leadership and accusation. Mia retrieved the folder containing the names. And I suggest you understand the difference between a clerical error and a traceable pattern. Benton's face momentarily hardened, a fleeting expression that Mia registered. Then it vanished. He turned towards the exit. I shall await the established protocol. Mia watched him depart. Grace's hands were now trembling. Mia spoke gently. Miss Holloway, look at me. Grace complied. You are no longer alone in this room. Grace nodded, though apprehension still lingered in her eyes. Maya looked down at the folder once more, at the names of individuals who had been quietly cornered by paperwork, shame, and fear. Yesterday, she had believed someone sought to ruin her wedding. Today, she understood they had disrupted far more than a ceremony. They had exposed the initial false threat of a system constructed to extract payment from the innocent for their own freedom. By noon, the records room had been transformed into a command center. County Attorney Ellis arrived first, carrying a legal pad and an expression indicating his quiet Monday had been irrevocably disrupted. Jonathan Reed followed, his worn leather briefcase in hand. The independent oversight representative, Marcia Lane, placed a recorder on the table and noted the time, the date, and the names of every individual present. Grace Holloway handed over the sealed envelope with both hands. Maya watched as Marcia meticulously logged it, photographed it, and officially recorded its transfer. No clandestine arrangements, Maya stated quietly. Jonathan nodded. No expediency. Expediency is the refuge of those engaged in corrupt practices. Grace sat at the far end of the table, her complexion pale but her posture steady. Isaiah stood near the doorway, not in a posture of guarding it, but rather indicating that no one would enter without being observed. Ellis opened the first file. These are all corrected alerts. Grace nodded. Corrected, redacted, or reclassified as clerical errors. Marcia scanned the list. 26 individuals that I identified rapidly, Grace reported. There may be more. Maya leaned over the table. Let us begin with the established pattern. Grace brought a folder forward. The alerts targeted individuals at critical junctures: loan closings, licensing hearings, contract negotiations, campaign announcements, moments when public disgrace would result in financial loss or reputational damage. Jonathan looked up, and after the alert, Grace swallowed. Most were contacted by an individual external to the department. Who? Isaiah inquired. Grace slid a page across. A consultant named Darrell Voss. Ellis frowned. I am familiar with that name. You should be, Jonathan remarked. He used to frequent the vicinity of Bond Court, presenting himself as a compliance advisor. Grace nodded. He informed individuals that he could resolve their warrant-related predicaments. For a fee. What type of fee? Maya asked. Grace's lips tightened. 10,000, 25, at times more.
One business owner paid $70,000 after being informed that an arrest record would jeopardize a county contract. Isaiah's expression turned grim. Those fees are not officially recognized. No, Grace affirmed, they are not. Marcia clicked her pen. Where did the funds originate? Grace retrieved another document from the folder. That is where the situation becomes peculiar.
Some payments were directed to Voss directly, but larger sums were channeled to a corporate entity known as Civic Path Holdings.
The name hung in the air of the room like something polished, yet tainted. Maya repeated it. Civic Path Holdings. Jonathan leaned back. It sounds like a community development firm. It is not, Grace clarified. Not truly. It lacks a physical office presence, merely a mailing address in Mon, and a registered agent who has established numerous shell corporations. Ellis rubbed his hand over his mouth. Do we have a connection to Benton? Grace hesitated, then nodded. Not directly, but Civic Path remitted consulting fees to a family trust associated with Benton's brother-in-law. A hush fell over the room. Maya felt the solidified shape of the scheme she had encountered yesterday. She had been a bride accused at the altar. Now, she was confronted with a business model. They were not enforcing the law, she stated.
They were essentially selling individuals their own liberty.
Isaiah examined the files. If the individual complied with the demand, the alert was rescinded. Grace nodded. Typically within 48 hours. And if they refused? Maya inquired. Grace turned to the final folder. Her hand moved with deliberate slowness. Then the negative repercussions persisted. Within were summaries, not exhaustive accounts, but they were sufficient. A restaurant owner who was denied the renewal of his liquor license. A contractor whose bid for a school renovation project collapsed following the rumor of an arrest. A nurse manager who was removed from consideration for promotion. A barber who relinquished half of his business to prevent his name from appearing in the press. Then there was one file with a black ribbon paperclip to the corner. Maya touched it, but did not open it immediately. Who is this individual? Grace's voice softened. Samuel Tate operated a small trucking enterprise.
A spurious fraud alert was issued.
He refused to comply with the demands. He lost 2 contracts, followed by his insurance coverage. 6 months later, he tragically took his own life. For a considerable moment, no one spoke. Maya opened the file just enough to read the initial page. No details beyond the essential information were provided. A name, a business, a family, a life cornered by bureaucratic documentation until all hope was extinguished. Isaiah's voice was low. You are not the initial victim. Maya gently closed the file. No, I was merely the first they failed to completely suppress. Jonathan removed his glasses. We require financial records, bank subpoenas, corporate filings, and communication logs between Voss and any personnel within this department. Ellis nodded. That necessitates external prosecution. If Mia spearheads every element, Benton will vehemently protest the conflict of interest. I anticipated, Mia responded. Therefore, we must construct this case with such impeccable integrity that his protests become mere background noise. Marcia looked at Grace. Can you identify who had access to the inactive account? Grace took a breath. Technically, 4 administrators had access. Practically, only 2 individuals were aware of its continued existence. Myself and Benton. Isaiah's gaze shifted to hers. You did not utilize it. Grace appeared offended for the first time. No, Sheriff, I did not. I believe you, he stated. But I needed to hear you confirm it, Maya requested. Can the account be linked to a specific terminal? Yes, Terminal 3B. However, the logs were partially erased. Partially, Jonathan inquired. Grace nodded. Whoever performed the action possessed sufficient knowledge to remove the obvious traces, but lacked the expertise to completely obliterate the backup index. For the first time, A faint, weary smile touched Maya's lips. There is a backup. There is always a backup, Grace affirmed, if one knows where older systems conceal their remnants. The room seemed to exhale. Ellis began to write. We must immediately secure the server. Maya turned to Isaiah. Can your office secure the system without disturbing departmental evidence? Yes, Isaiah replied. I will bring in county IT under oversight. No one from Benton's direct line of command will have access. Marcia briefly paused the recorder, only to replace the battery, then reactivated it. This is now a formal preservation matter. A knock sounded at the door. Every individual froze. One of Isaiah's deputies peered in. Chief Williams, there is a reporter downstairs inquiring about a rumor that you were dismissed due to political pressure. Maya looked at Jonathan. Jonathan sighed. Benton moves with considerable speed, Isaiah observed. We can issue a statement. Maya shook her head. Not regarding myself. Not at this juncture. Ellis frowned. What's next? Mia tapped the folder filled with names. We've initiated an inquiry into all warrant alerts and administrative adjustments from the preceding 5 years. No accusations, no names, just the investigation. Jonathan offered a subtle smile. Let Benton stew, wondering what we've uncovered, and let the victims know someone is finally taking action, Maya stated. Grace lowered her gaze, a single tear tracing a path down her cheek before she quickly brushed it away. Embarrassed, Mia feigned ignorance. She had learned that showing mercy sometimes meant allowing people their privacy amidst their turmoil. By nightfall, the first official directive was issued under Mia's name. All warrant alerts, corrections, deletions, and reclassifications from the past 5 years were placed on hold, pending a thorough, independent review. Civic Path Holdings was not mentioned. Benton was not mentioned. Cole was not mentioned. Yet, within the aged brick structure of the police department, apprehension began to permeate the very walls. As Maya departed the records room, her eyes lingered for a moment on the folder labeled Samuel Tate. Yesterday, she had believed a fabricated warrant could jeopardize a wedding. Today, she understood it possessed the power to dismantle a life. And somewhere in Briarwood County, the individuals who had extorted money from people in exchange for their freedom were about to discover that the reckoning had arrived. Marcus Reed arrived at Jonathan's office shortly after 7 o'clock, carrying a black camera bag as if it contained a great burden. The office was situated above a vintage pharmacy on Main Street, its tall windows overlooking the courthouse square. Most of Briarwood's downtown had fallen silent for the evening, with only the diner across the street and the intermittent glow of a sheriff's cruiser parked at the curb breaking the stillness. Maya was seated at the conference table with Isaiah, Jonathan, Grace, and Marcia Lane from oversight. Her wrists still ached, but she had ceased to rub them. Pain, she had concluded, was a form of information, not a command. Marcus placed the camera bag on the table. I've brought the unedited footage, all of it. Jonathan peered at him over his spectacles. You haven't uploaded anything? No, sir. My profession is wedding videography, not the dissemination of gossip. Marcus cast a glance at Maya. That day was yours. Even after everything that transpired, it remained yours. Maya's throat constricted. Thank you. Marcus unzipped the bag, revealing 2 memory cards and a compact hard drive. Marcia meticulously logged each item, photographed their labels, and secured them in evidence sleeves before transferring the files to a protected laptop. No alterations, she inquired. None at all? Marcus confirmed. You'll observe the time code running continuously. The room darkened as Jonathan dimmed the lights. The video commenced with the altar, adorned with flowers. Isaiah stood with both hands clasped before him. Maya entered the frame, walking with deliberate slowness, her ivory gown reflecting the stained glass light from the church windows. A moment of silence fell. Even Grace, who had not attended the ceremony, looked down as if intruding upon something sacred. Then, the doors on screen swung open. Cole entered. "Freeze! That dark-skinned bride is a wanted fugitive." Maya heard the words again, but this time they sounded different, imbued with a chilling detachment, because she was no longer immersed in the moment. She was an observer. Watching a man attempt to weaponize her life into evidence against her, Isaiah reached beneath the table and took her hand. Marcus swallowed. "There's more footage preceding that. I had a second camera positioned near the rear. It captured his arrival." Marcia opened the second file. The perspective shifted to the back of the church. Cole stood just outside the entrance with another officer. He consulted his phone, read something, then leaned towards the man beside him. The audio was faint. Jonathan amplified the volume. Cole's voice emerged, low but discernible. Benton instructed, "Proceed before the vows." No one moved. Grace whispered, "Oh my God." Isaiah's grip tightened on Maya's hand, but his voice remained steady. "Play it again." Marcia replayed the segment. Benton instructed, "Proceed before the vows." The statement echoed through the room for a second time. This was no longer a rumor. It was no longer a suspicion. It was a voice, a timestamp, a directive. Jonathan leaned back. That places Benton at the church before Cole even entered. Not physically, Marcia clarified, but in terms of operational intent. Maya kept her gaze fixed on the frozen image of Cole outside the church doors. He intended for the accusation to be leveled before I became Isaiah's wife. Grace appeared perplexed. Why would that be significant? "Because vows alter the way people are perceived," Maya explained softly. "He wanted me isolated in front of my own family." Marcus shifted in his seat. "There's something else. I wasn't certain if it was relevant." "Show us," Isaiah requested. Marcus opened another file from the reception camera that had been positioned near the side aisle. It captured the precise moment Cole held up the folder, displaying the photograph. A few frames later, as Maya demanded to see the birth date, Cole turned slightly. For less than 2 seconds, the interior of the folder faced the camera. Marcia paused the video and magnified the image. The print was initially blurred, then sharpened sufficiently to reveal a sticky note affixed to the inside cover. Jonathan leaned closer. "Can you decipher that?" Marcia adjusted the contrast. The words became roughly legible. "Use old number. Push homicide. HB." The room fell silent once more. Grace covered her mouth. HB. Maya did not utter Benton's name. She had no need to. Jonathan's voice was hushed. "This is sufficient grounds to immediately secure Cole's phone." Isaiah stood. "I will initiate the warrant request process through the Sheriff's Department and external counsel. We'll handle this impeccably." Maya nodded. "No shortcuts." Marcus looked between them. "Will this entangle mean anything?" Mia turned to face him fully. "Yes, but you won't be alone." He let out a nervous, humorless chuckle. "That's an honest answer." "At least you did the right thing," she affirmed. "And we will meticulously preserve the chain of custody and your integral role in it." Marcus looked down at his hands. "My father owned a print shop 2 blocks from the courthouse. He used to say, 'A record is only as trustworthy as the individual who maintains it.'" He looked at the frozen screen. "Yesterday, I simply continued recording." "That may be why the truth prevailed," Maya remarked. Jonathan entered the audio clip into the evidence log, then looked at Maya. "Once Benton realizes we possess this, he will attempt to discredit the video. He'll claim it was manipulated, misinterpreted, or taken out of context." He can assert whatever he wishes, Masha responded. The raw files and timecodes are pristine. Grace stared at the screen. But why would they risk such a public spectacle at a wedding? Maya pictured the pews, the hushed conversations, Aunt Denise's hurt expression. Because public humiliation is part of the penalty. People settle debts more readily when they believe their reputation is already tarnished. The words settled upon them. Isaiah returned from the hallway, phone in hand. County IT is prepared to secure the server. Ellis is drafting the preservation order for Cole's phone and departmental communications. Jonathan appeared pleased. Excellent. Now we have records, financial transactions, and video evidence. Not enough, Maya countered. Everyone looked at her. She pointed to the frozen image of the sticky note.
We have Benton's initials, we have Cole mentioning his name, but we still need to establish a direct link between the church incident and Civic Path. I want to ascertain if someone intended to approach me following the arrest. Grace's expression shifted. Like the others, Maya nodded. Like the others, Marcus slowly packed his empty camera bag, as if the act of leaving the footage behind felt somehow disquieting. At the door, he paused. Chief Williams. Maya looked up. I regret that your wedding video became this. Maya glanced at the screen where her image stood in a white dress illuminated by church light moments before the doors opened. I do too, she replied, but perhaps it was intended to document more than just a wedding. After Marcus departed, the room remained silent. Outside, the diner sign flickered red across the window. Somewhere below, a car rumbled over the old brick street. Maya stood and observed the evidence sleeves laid out on the table. A fabricated warrant had introduced shame into a church. A camera had documented its intrusion. Now, the deception had found its voice. Elaine Porter arrived the following morning, carrying a canvas tote, a silver laptop, and the unmistakable demeanor of a woman who had spent 3 decades observing people manipulate spreadsheets. She was in her 50s, with sharp eyes, reading glasses suspended from a chain, and a stainless steel tumbler of unsweetened iced tea in her hand. Jonathan had contacted her before sunrise. By 9 o'clock, she was seated in the back room of his office, examining the initial set of records provided by Grace. Elaine tapped the page. Civic Path Holdings. That's your conduit. Maya leaned forward. A shell company? More like a broom closet with a bank account. Elaine turned the laptop towards them. Registered in Montana. No physical office. No employees I could identify. Merely a mailing address, a registered agent, and a series of payments that appeared sufficiently innocuous to withstand a cursory audit. Isaiah stood behind Maya's chair. Payments from victims, Elaine confirmed. Some direct, some rerouted through Daryl Voss, the so-called compliance consultant. They labeled them advisory fees, bond support, expedited filing services. None of these terms exist within the county's official policy. Grace sat beside Marshall Lane, her hands clasped tightly. Those were the inquiries people made to me, private bond fees. I repeatedly informed them that we did not offer such services. And then Maya inquired. Grace looked down. Some stopped calling altogether. Elaine clicked to another screen. Here's the recurring pattern. A false alert surfaces, the citizen panics, Voss contacts them within 24 hours, funds are transferred to Civic Path or an affiliated LLC, the alert is then removed or reclassified as a clerical error. Jonathan removed his glasses. That constitutes extortion, disguised in professional attire. Elaine offered a wry smile. The most expensive kind. Maya studied the list of names. How much money, based on our current visibility? Approximately $800,000 over 5 years. The room fell still. Isaiah's voice lowered. Primarily from small business owners, Elaine elaborated. A restaurant, an auto repair shop, a trucking firm, a home healthcare agency, 2 contracting businesses,
a beauty supply store, a family-owned bakery, individuals with assets but insufficient political leverage. Maya felt a quiet, dangerous anger surge through her. They targeted people who could afford to pay but lacked the capacity to resist. Elaine nodded. Precisely. Marcia pointed to one column. What about ownership transfers? Elaine opened another file. That's the more incriminating aspect. 3 businesses transferred minority stakes to companies associated with Civic Path.
One barber signed over 40% of his establishment. A contractor transferred title to equipment. A bakery relinquished profit participation on a county vendor contract. Grace whispered, they were seizing portions of people's lives. No, Maya corrected. They were compelling individuals to repurchase the right to continue living their lives. Elaine regarded her over her glasses. There's more. Civic Path remitted consulting fees to a trust linked to Harold Benton's brother-in-law. Jonathan's eyes narrowed. Linked how? The same mailing address for 2 years, the same tax preparer, the same registered agent, and one payment memo that simply reads HB Review. Isaiah exhaled slowly. Careless, arrogant, Elaine interjected. Individuals like these rarely anticipate anyone being permitted to investigate. Maya's phone vibrated on the table. A message from County Attorney Ellis appeared. Benton is demanding written notification of the audit scope. The union is inquiring whether Cole is the target. A local reporter is requesting comment on allegations of political retaliation. Isaiah read it over her shoulder. He's attempting to frame the narrative before we complete the construction of our case. Maya placed the phone down. Then we remain silent. We document everything. Elaine nodded in approval. Excellent. Because if you issue accusations before the funds are secured, they will be moved. Jonathan turned to Isaiah. Can the Sheriff's Department request emergency preservation from the banks? We can initiate the process with subpoenas through external counsel, Isaiah stated. But I want a judge who doesn't owe Benton any favors. Marcia made a note. State-level oversight can support the request. Grace hesitated. There's something else. Maya looked at her. Please, proceed. Grace opened the folder she had kept close. Some of the corrected alerts were accompanied by sealed internal memos. I could only view the titles, not the content. However, the initials HB appear on 4 of them. What were the titles? Jonathan inquired. Grace read from the page. Public Confidence Strategy, Containment Plan, Subject Compliance Risk, Media Leverage. Maya closed her eyes for a brief moment. Isaiah's hand rested gently on the back of her chair. Maya. She opened her eyes. That was their plan for me. No one offered any dissent. If Cole's arrest had been upheld, if the church had believed the accusation, if Isaiah had lost control, someone else would have intervened. Perhaps Darrell Voss or another impeccably dressed messenger. They would have presented a discreet solution. Pay, resign, sign, disappear. Elaine turned the laptop back towards herself. Chief Williams, this situation extends beyond your wedding. I am aware. No, Elaine stated, not unkindly. I mean, it extends beyond Benton as well. Funds of this magnitude attract influential associates. The room absorbed her statement. Jonathan leaned forward. Then we proceed in stages. Preserve the data, secure the video evidence, protect Grace, lock down the financial records. Identify victims willing to testify. Maya nodded. No public accusations until we can demonstrate the complete sequence of events. Isaiah looked at Elaine. Can you render the financial data comprehensible for a council hearing? Elaine gave him a pointed look. Sheriff, I can transform a church bake sale ledger into evidence of organized crime if the numbers warrant it.
For the first time that morning, Grace almost smiled. Maya stood and walked to the window. Across the street, the diner was filling with a lunch crowd. Men in work shirts, women with grocery bags, retired individuals lingering over coffee. Ordinary people who trusted established systems because life was too demanding to scrutinize every stamp and signature. They constructed a toll road built on fear, Isaiah said quietly from behind her. Maya nodded. Then we closed the road. Her phone buzzed again. This time, it was an unknown number. The message contained a single sentence. Stop digging before the county learns what kind of woman you truly are. Maya showed it to Isaiah, then to Jonathan. Jonathan's expression hardened. That is intimidation. Maya looked back through the window at Briarwood, bathed in the midday sun. No, it's confirmation. She handed the phone to Marcia for documentation. Elaine closed her laptop. I will require 2 hours to prepare a financial summary. You will have it, Maya assured her. Grace looked at the list of names on the table. What becomes of them, the individuals who paid? Maya picked up the folder and held it carefully, as if the paper itself bore the weight of their suffering. We begin by restoring their names, she declared. Then, we trace every dollar that was taken from them. Outside, the courthouse clock chimed noon. Inside Jonathan Reed's office, the lie was no longer merely a voice on a wedding video or a fraudulent alert in a police system. It now possessed a bank account. Maya did not examine Cole's personnel file for the purpose of punishment. She read it because every corrupt system comprises two types of individuals, those who construct it and those who comply with it, because obedience often feels less arduous than confronting one's conscience. By late afternoon, Jonathan's office had grown quiet. Elaine Porter had departed to prepare the financial summary. Grace was in a corner, reviewing old access logs with Marcia Lane. Isaiah stood by the window, observing the courthouse square as if Benton might materialize, carrying another fabricated narrative. Maya opened Travis Cole's file. Service record, commendations, complaints, reprimands softened into verbal counseling. 3 citizen complaints closed without findings. 2 use of discretion reviews. A note regarding strong loyalty to the command structure. That phrase always concerns me, Jonathan remarked, glancing over. Maya looked up. Loyalty to the command structure implies he will follow a wrongful order if issued by the appropriate individual. Isaiah approached the table. Is there anything linking him to Voss or Civic Path? Not yet, Maya responded, but he was assigned to 3 of the old false alert cases. Grace looked up from her laptop. 3. Mia turned the pages. A contractor, a barber, a home health administrator. Jonathan's expression tightened. That's not a coincidence. No, Mia agreed, but it still doesn't explain why he entered my wedding as if he owned the place. Isaiah reached for another folder from the personnel packet. What is this? Maya read the tab. Family emergency leave 2 years ago. She opened it, expecting nothing significant. Then, the room seemed to contract. The report was concise. A serious vehicle accident on County Road 18. An adult female trapped inside the vehicle. The first individual on the scene remained unidentified due to an active undercover operation in the vicinity. The victim was extricated before fire crews completed their arrival. The rescuer sustained burns to the wrist and declined public identification due to operational security protocols. Maya stopped reading. Isaiah observed the shift in her demeanor. Maya. She closed the folder halfway. Jonathan leaned forward. What is it? Maya did not respond immediately. She looked down at her left wrist. The marks from the handcuffs applied yesterday encircled her skin, but beneath them was an older scar, pale and curved like an unvoiced question. Isaiah followed her gaze, his voice softening. That was you. Grace appeared confused. What was her? Maya took a deep breath. 2 years ago, I was engaged in an undercover assignment near County Road 18. There was an accident. I arrived before the official responders. Isaiah's eyes remained fixed on her wrist. Cole's family. Maya nodded. His sister, Rachel Cole. I didn't know who she was at the time. The room fell into silence. Grace whispered, "You saved his sister. I assisted in her removal," Maya stated. "That is all the report needs to convey." Jonathan leaned back slowly. "And Cole never knew." "No, I was in plain clothes, wearing protective eyewear, and the assignment was classified. I departed before anyone asked for my name." Isaiah's jaw tightened. "So yesterday he placed handcuffs over the scar he didn't recognize." Maya looked back at the file. The words blurred for a moment, not from tears, but from the peculiar cruelty of the situation. A man could owe his family's peace to someone and still publicly destroy her if the lie was presented convincingly. Grace inquired, "Are you going to inform him?" Maya closed the folder. "Not to compel his confession." Jonathan nodded slowly. "Good." Isaiah looked at her. "Why not?" "Because a benevolent act is not a constraint," Maya explained. "I will not leverage it against him. That does not diminish the importance of the truth." "No," she reiterated. "But if he chooses to speak the truth, it must stem from his ultimate recognition of his wrongdoing, not from my presenting him with a debt and requesting its repayment." Isaiah studied her with quiet sadness. "You continue to rescue people without them knowing the cost to you." Maya gave him a weary look. "And you continue to say things that portray me as more noble than I am." "No," he countered. "I say things that make you uncomfortable because they are accurate." For a fleeting moment, the room felt like any other. Then, Marcia's laptop chimed. She looked at the screen. "County IT has secured the inactive account logs. They discovered backup fragments." Grace sat up. "From Terminal 3B? Yes, and there's a discernible user pattern. Whoever accessed the account utilized 3 previous false alert files before creating Maya's." Jonathan leaned forward. "Which 3? Marcia read the names. Grace's face paled. "Those are the identical 3 cases Cole worked on." Maya looked down at Cole's file. Isaiah's voice lowered. "Someone used cases associated with Cole as templates. Or Cole provided them with the verbiage," Jonathan suggested. Maya shook her head. "Perhaps, but consider the wedding video again. Cole sounded like someone reciting a script, not composing one." Grace asked, "Does that lessen his culpability?" "No," Mia responded. "It makes him a valuable asset." Isaiah glanced in her direction. "Be cautious." "I am aware." Maya placed Cole's file on top of the false alert folders. He made the deliberate choice to enter that church. He chose to tighten those restraints. He elected to humiliate me with documentation he failed to verify. But Benton may have selected him because he was loyal, resentful, and easily manipulated. Jonathan's phone buzzed. He read the screen and frowned. "What is it?" Isaiah inquired. "Local news broadcast a preliminary report. Questions are mounting concerning the recently appointed county police chief following an incident of arrest at a wedding. Chief Benton's scheduled press conference is set for tomorrow morning." Grace closed her eyes. "He's going public." Mia got up from her seat and moved toward the window. Across the street, the courthouse clock was illuminated against the dimming sky. Individuals were departing from their workplaces, carrying their personal belongings such as handbags, packed lunches, folded newspapers, and their everyday anxieties. They were unaware at that moment that their county had been engaged in the practice of commercializing apprehension. Isaiah came to stand next to her. "He will assert that you are exhibiting undue emotion, too inexperienced, too personally invested. I am aware he will present himself as rational. That is the forte of men like Benton." Jonathan joined them. "We can broadcast the footage." "No," Maya replied. Grace appeared startled. For what reason not? Because if we release the original footage prematurely, he will target that particular segment. I want him to speak initially.
I desire for him to articulate his falsehood publicly. Isaiah turned to her. Then we will counter with documented evidence.
Maya nodded, not with indignation, with records. Her wrist throbbed beneath the scar and the indentations left by restraints. For the first time, she contemplated what Cole would do upon discovering the truth regarding Rachel. Not out of a need for his acknowledgement, but because a person's conscience can sometimes awaken belatedly, compelling a decision about how to proceed with the present circumstances. Mia reviewed his file. There were outstanding debts that were uncollectible. There were truths that could not be permanently concealed. And somewhere between these two realities stood Officer Travis Cole, still convinced that Benton's protection was more formidable than the past he had forgotten. Benton selected the courthouse steps as the venue because he understood the significance of symbolism.
By 10 o'clock the following morning, local journalists had congregated beneath the ancient stone columns, equipped with cameras, microphones, and cups of coffee. Behind them, a few county employees were lingering during their lunch breaks. Across the street, through the windows of May's diner, all the men and women observed the proceedings while enjoying their meals of eggs, grits, biscuits, and gravy. Maya was situated within Jonathan Reed's office, gazing out from the second-floor window. Isaiah stood beside her. Jonathan, Grace, Marcia, and Elaine were observing the live broadcast on a laptop behind them. On the screen, Harold Benton approached the microphones, dressed in a gray suit and a blue tie. He appeared composed, paternal, almost regretful. That was his skill. He possessed the ability to make an untruth sound like a civic obligation. Briarwood County is entitled to a sense of order, Benton commenced. It is deserving of seasoned leadership, not a novice chief who is transforming a personal setback into a political purge. Isaiah's jaw muscles tensed. Maya remained motionless. Benton continued. What transpired at New Hope Baptist Church was unfortunate. No one desires to witness a ceremony being disrupted, but the officers acted upon the information accessible within the system, and now certain individuals are attempting to leverage that difficult moment into an accusation against this department. A reporter inquired, "Are you suggesting that Chief Williams is exploiting her new role?" Benton let out a deliberate sigh. "I am suggesting that sorrow and disgrace can impair one's judgment. I hold Miss Williams in high regard. However, no one should be investigating a matter in which they have a personal stake." Jonathan murmured, "There it is." Maya observed Benton lowering his voice for dramatic effect. "This county cannot be governed by bitterness," he stated. "It must be guided by adherence to regulations." Grace's hands tightened around her coffee cup. "He makes it sound so logical. That is how individuals of his caliber persist," Maya commented. Another reporter raised a hand. "Mr. Benton, were you aware that Officer Cole intended to enter the church prior to the wedding vows?" Benton offered a subtle smile. "I do not oversee lawful operations in such detail." Elaine scoffed. That man would not permit a stapler to be moved without authorization. On the screen, Benton paused, as if reluctant to deliver the subsequent statement. "There are also inquiries regarding Chief Williams' prior professional conduct. I will refrain from discussing unverified information, but I believe the county should suspend this transition until all concerns have been thoroughly examined." Mia's phone vibrated almost instantly, followed by Jonathan's, then Isaiah's. Jonathan read first. "The email has been dispatched." He turned his laptop towards Mia. The subject line was already circulating among local inboxes. "Inquiries regarding Maya Williams and previous misconduct review." The email alleged that Maya had once concealed evidence in a state compliance investigation. It provided no concrete documentation, only excerpts, veiled suggestions, and a poorly defined memorandum lacking a signature. Grace looked appalled. That is fabricated. Maya read it once. Her expression remained unchanged, but a chill permeated her being. Isaiah stated, "Maya, I am fine." "No," he replied gently. "You are standing. That is not the same thing." She averted her gaze from the screen. Below, Benton was responding to another question. His hands were open, his voice smooth. "He is not attempting to prove anything," Maya remarked. "He is endeavoring to exhaust people's willingness to acknowledge the truth." At May's diner, the television mounted above the counter was broadcasting the press conference live. Mr. Alton Pierce, the proprietor of the adjacent barbershop, was seated in a booth with two retired educators and a woman who managed the church's food pantry. The waitress replenished their coffee cups without being asked. "That young woman appeared frightened at the church," one man commented. "But being scared does not equate to guilt." A retired teacher shook her head. "I recall when my nephew's problematic record surfaced just before his job interview. It took 3 months to rectify. By then, the opportunity was lost." Mr. Pierce gazed intently at Benton on the screen. "It is peculiar how these errors always seem to manifest at opportune moments." Back in Jonathan's office, Marcia saved copies of the email, including the header information. Elaine leaned over her shoulder. "This originated through a relay," Elaine stated, "not amateur." Jonathan nodded. Benton desires for her to be occupied with refuting accusations rather than tracing financial transactions. Isaiah turned to Maya. "We can't release the judge footage. No, he just publicly attacked your character, and if we respond with a single clip, he will spend the entire day dismissing it as emotional theatrics. I want him on the record. Now he is." Grace spoke softly. "What are our next steps?" Maya walked to the conference table and placed both hands flat upon its surface. The marks from the restraints were diminishing but still visible. "We will respond once," she declared. "No displays of outrage, no arguments, no lengthy defenses." Jonathan picked up a pen. "State it." Maya looked towards the window, where Benton was still addressing the cameras. "The truth will not be determined by the volume of discussion. It will be substantiated by documented facts." Jonathan wrote it down and nodded. "Clean," Isaiah added. "Reiterate the announcement of the audit." Maya shook her head. "No, we are announcing an expansion of the audit to encompass external financial connections related to corrected alerts." Elaine offered a slow smile. "That will cause Civic Path considerable unease." "Good," Maya responded. "Nervous individuals tend to make errors." Grace looked at her with a mixture of apprehension and admiration. "Won't that alert Benton?" "He is already aware of our intentions," Maya stated. "Now, I want every individual who has been affected to realize that we are pursuing more than just my reputation." Jonathan typed out the statement. Within minutes, it was disseminated under the county's official letterhead. Chief Maya Williams will not engage in litigation of facts through rumor or press conferences. The truth will not be determined by volume. It will be substantiated by documented facts. Effective immediately, the independent audit of warrant alerts will be expanded to include financial relationships, third-party compliance contacts, and all administrative corrections pertaining to affected citizens over the preceding 5 years. The room remained silent after Jonathan sent the message. Then, Mia's phone rang. An unknown number. Isaiah glanced at the screen. "Do not answer." Mia answered and placed it on speaker. A man's voice, low and disguised, said, "You should have remained a bride." Maya did not flinch. "And you should have stayed anonymous."
The line went dead. Marcia logged the call. Isaiah's expression hardened, but Maya merely looked back at the courthouse steps. Benton was departing now, surrounded by reporters. His countenance remained placid for the cameras. Grace whispered, "Aren't you afraid?" Maya thought of the church, the restraints, Aunt Denise's doubts, the names in Grace's folder, Samuel Tate's black ribbon. "Yes," she replied, "but fear is not a directive." That evening, the county became divided into conversations. Some individuals believed Benton, others sided with Maya. Most people acted as people often do when power and truth clash. They waited to observe who would falter first. However, in barber shops, kitchens, church basements, and diner booths, older voices began recounting older narratives. A problematic warrant prior to a loan, a peculiar fee before obtaining a license, a consultant who promised to make troubles vanish by attacking Maya publicly. Benton's intention was to isolate her. Instead, he had prompted the county to recall. Grace Holloway telephoned Mia at 6:12 the following morning. Her voice was so subdued that Mia had to sit up in bed to hear her. "Chief Williams, I need to see you before I enter the building." Mia looked towards the window. The sun had not yet fully risen. Beside her, Isaiah was already awake. "Where are you?" Maya inquired. "Courthouse, parking lot, back row." "Please do not. I believe they are relocating me today." Isaiah was out of bed before Maya concluded the call. 20 minutes later, they pulled into the courthouse lot. Grace was seated in an older blue sedan, her hands clasped around a travel mug. Although she had not taken a sip, she appeared diminished compared to her appearance in the records room, as if the weight of her responsibilities had pressed down upon her shoulders. Maya entered the passenger seat, while Isaiah stood outside near the hood, close enough to observe, but far enough to afford them privacy. Grace handed Maya a manila envelope. "They have reassigned me to facilities inventory." Mia's eyes hardened. "Who authorized it?" "Benton's deputy. Effective immediately." Grace offered a thin, humorless smile. 19 years in records, and suddenly they require me to count folding chairs. Maya opened the envelope. Inside was a printed transfer order, a flash drive, and several folded pages. Grace's hands trembled. "I retained more than I initially disclosed." Maya looked up. "I was apprehensive." Grace stated, "I believed if I provided you with everything at once, I would lose my position before you could utilize it." "You do not need to explain fear to me," Maya responded. Grace swallowed. "There are backup logs, internal correction requests, and one audio file. I made a copy 6 months ago after Benton mandated that we erase a complaint. I was uncertain what to do with it." "What is contained on the audio?" Grace glanced towards the courthouse. Benton speaking with Cole. Maya felt the atmosphere within the car shift. Grace continued. "Not about the wedding, but about how to exact retribution." Isaiah opened the driver's door and leaned in. "We require Jonathan and Marcia." "No," Grace interjected quickly, panic flashing across her face. "Not here, not in this lot." Maya nodded. "Then we depart." They drove to Jonathan Reed's office before the courthouse opened. Jonathan arrived in the same brown suit as the previous day, his tie not yet perfectly adjusted. Marcia Lane arrived 10 minutes later, carrying an evidence bag, a recorder, and exhibiting no inclination for idle conversation. Grace formally handed over the flash drive. Marcia logged it. Jonathan created a working copy. Everyone remained silent while the audio file loaded. Initially, there was only static. Then Benton's voice filled the room, smooth and recognizable. "People do not pay when they believe they have options. Cole responded, his voice sounding younger and uncertain. What if they secure legal representation? Benton chuckled softly. Then you selected the incorrect target. You do not confront those in positions of power. You pressure those who have something to lose and no one to support them. Maya's expression remained impassive. The recording continued. Cole inquired. And if they refuse, Benton stated, then the alert persists, the rumor circulates, a bank becomes apprehensive, a contract vanishes. Sooner or later, everyone pays. Money, property, silence. People invariably pay. Grace covered her mouth. Isaiah's voice was low. That is him. Jonathan nodded. That constitutes conspiracy. Marcia did not avert her gaze from the laptop. There is more. Benton's voice returned, clearer now. And if you ever encounter someone in the public eye, someone proud, someone who believes their reputation offers protection, ensure the shame occurs first. Shame compels people to negotiate. The room grew cold. Maya anticipated the next words. Cole asked, like whom? Benton replied, like that Williams girl. If the council demonstrates sufficient foolishness to place her in my position, make the bride plead. If she complies, she belongs to us. If she refuses, we will destroy her reputation before she ever assumes that office. Grace began to weep silently. Maya did not. She sat very still, her hands folded on the table. The marks from the restraints were faint, but still discernible on her wrists. Isaiah moved closer. Maya. She looked at him. Now we know. Jonathan stopped the recording and removed his glasses. This alters the timetable. Benton had made plans for you before the wedding. He had plans for the office, Maya stated. I was merely the individual standing in its path. Grace shook her head. I should have come forward sooner. Mia turned to her. You came forward before he could conceal it. That is significant. Marcia sealed the drive. We require a formal hearing. The council, the county attorney, a union representative, external oversight, and state investigators if Ellis can facilitate their involvement. Jonathan looked at Maya. Once this commences, Benton will target Grace. Then we will protect her first, Maya declared. Grace wiped her cheeks. I do not desire preferential treatment. This is not preferential treatment, Isaiah countered. This is witness protection within a county procedure. Maya retrieved her phone and dialed County Attorney Ellis. We possess recorded evidence linking Benton to the false alert scheme, coercive payments, and the incident at my wedding. I request an emergency council session today. Ellis was silent for a single second. How substantial? Strong enough that if we delay, we become complicit in the cover-up. That's substantial, he confirmed. I will make the necessary calls. After she ended the call, Maya stood and walked to the window. Main Street was beginning to stir. A delivery truck stopped outside the diner. An elderly man swept the sidewalk in front of the barber shop. An ordinary morning. Ordinary people. The kind Benton had anticipated would remain too preoccupied, too fearful, or too weary to challenge documentation backed by authority. Isaiah came to stand beside her. Are you ready? No, Maya replied. But readiness is overrated. He almost smiled. That sounds like something your father would say. Maya touched the folded letter in her jacket pocket. He did. Behind them, Jonathan arranged the files in order. False alert, video, financial trail, personnel link, audio. Marcia prepared the evidence log. Grace sat with a cup of coffee that Isaiah had brought her, holding it now as if warmth had finally reached her hands. Maya turned back to the room. No surprises, she stated. No humiliation, no theatrical displays. We will present the truth incrementally and allow Benton to confront the record he believed he controlled. Jonathan nodded. And Cole? Maya looked at the personnel file still resting on the stack. Cole's name marked with a yellow tab. Cole will also receive the truth, she concluded. All of it. By noon, the council chamber was being prepared. Chairs were arranged, microphones tested, legal notices printed. Benton had utilized private rooms, rear entrances, and subtle intimidation to convert apprehension into profit. Maya intended to employ a public venue, a clear record, and every name he had attempted to erase. The conflict had moved out of the shadows, and this time the paperwork belonged to the truth. The council chamber was full before 1 o'clock. No public trial had been officially announced, but Briarwood understood how to sense trouble percolating within its own structures.
Council members were seated behind the elevated desk. County Attorney Ellis arranged folders near the central table. Marshal Lane checked the recorder. Jonathan Reed organized the evidence binders. Isaiah stood near the side wall in his sheriff's uniform. Quiet and observant, Maya entered last. The atmosphere in the room shifted as she stepped inside. Some individuals looked at her wrists, others averted their gaze. Grace sat near Marcia, pale but composed. Marcus Reed was seated 2 rows back, his hands clasped around his camera bag. Elaine Porter had her laptop open, her reading glasses positioned low on her nose. Benton sat at the opposing table with his attorney, dressed in a dark suit, his expression serene. Officer Cole sat behind him, rigid and restless. Chairwoman Patricia Bell struck the gavel once. "This emergency session is now convened," Benton's attorney Rose stated. "Madam Chair, we formally object to these proceedings." Chief Williams is personally involved in the matter under review. Maya stood before Bell could respond. That is precisely why independent oversight, the county council, and Sheriff Brooks are present. I will not ask this assembly to trust my personal feelings. I will request that they review the documented evidence. Bell nodded. Proceed. Maya walked to the front table. She did not raise her voice. "No one is here to be subjected to humiliation," she stated. "However, everyone is present to account for what was done in the name of the law." The chamber fell silent. She began with the false alert. Marcia displayed a system log on the screen. This alert, under the name Maya Denise Williams, was entered 42 minutes before the incident at New Hope Baptist Church. The birth year was inaccurate. The address was incorrect. The signature affixed to the financial file did not correspond with verified samples. Benton's attorney leaned towards him, whispering. Mia continued. The alert was generated through an inactive administrative account from Terminal 3B within the County Police Department. Ellis added, "That account should not have been operational." Mia looked towards Benton. Yet it was. Benton folded his hands. "A technical malfunction is not indicative of a conspiracy." "No," Mia replied. "That is why we persisted in our investigation." She nodded to Marcus. Marcia played the rear camera footage from the church. The room watched as Cole stood outside the sanctuary doors, glanced at his phone, and stated, Benton instructed, "Do it before the vows." Cole's expression tightened. Benton did not move. The clip concluded. Maya spoke again. "That was prior to Officer Cole entering the church and accusing me of murder in front of my family." Benton's attorney stood. "This audio recording is indistinct and lacks context." Jonathan Reed rose slowly. "The raw files, time codes, and chain of custody have been meticulously preserved. Mr. Reed's office, independent oversight, and the county council have verified the source." "I am Jonathan Reed," Jonathan stated dryly, And yes, I have. A few individuals shifted in their seats, but no one laughed. The room was too tense for such a reaction. Maya nodded to Marcia, who displayed the next image. The interior of Cole's folder, frozen from Marcus's video recording. The sticky note was visible after enhancement. Use old number. Push homicide. Hot Bay. Cole stared at the screen as if he had never seen it before, or as if he wished he had not. Maya did not avert her gaze from Benton. "Mr. Benton, are those your initials?" Benton offered a faint smile. "Half the county shares those initials." Elaine Porter stood. "Not half the county has a financial connection leading to Civic Path Holdings." She clicked her laptop. A chart appeared on the screen. Names transformed into dates. Dates became alerts. Alerts became payments. Elaine's voice was sharp. False or erroneous alerts appeared shortly before significant financial transactions. Within 24 to 48 hours, individuals were contacted by Daryl Voss, who offered purported compliance assistance. Payments were then channeled to Civic Path Holdings or associated LLCs. Some individuals paid thousands. Some transferred business interests. Following payment, alerts were rectified or reclassified as clerical oversights. Chairwoman Bell leaned forward. "How many cases?" 26 confirmed thus far, Elaine reported. Likely more. A murmur spread through the chamber. Maya allowed it to subside, then stated, "These individuals were not chosen at random. The individuals present were primarily Black residents who owned businesses, possessed licenses, held contracts, maintained reputations, and crucially, had something substantial to lose." Benton finally broke the silence. Maya's expression remained serene. "No, Mr. Benton," she replied. "This pertains to financial accountability." Elaine transitioned to the next visual aid. Civic Path Holdings materialized at the forefront. Lines extended from it, connecting to Voss, various shell corporations, and the family trust linked to Benton's brother-in-law. Benton's legal counsel rose once more. "An alleged association," he stated. Elaine glanced at him over her spectacles. "A documented association," she corrected. "Alleged motive." The atmosphere in the room turned palpably frigid. Maya turned her attention to Grace. "Miss Holloway," she prompted. Grace began to rise, her voice initially wavering before gaining strength. "I worked in the records department for 19 years. I witnessed discrepancies being rectified without any explanation. I observed complaints being reclassified. I saw names vanish from investigative alerts after individuals had made undisclosed payments. I remained silent out of fear." Benton regarded her with a gaze that was both gentle and menacingly sorrowful. "Grace, exercise caution." Maya moved a step closer to Grace. "She is exercising caution. That's precisely why she brought these records." Marcia initiated playback of the audio from Grace's USB drive. Benton's voice resonated through the chamber. "People don't comply when they believe they have alternatives." Cole's voice followed. "What if they lawyer up?" "Then you select the incorrect target," Benton retorted. "You don't confront those in positions of power. You target those with something to lose and no one to advocate for them." A woman in the rear row whispered, "Jesus." The recording continued. "Ensure the bride pleads. If she capitulates, she belongs to us. If she refuses, we will utterly destroy her reputation before she even assumes that office." The silence that descended after the audio concluded was absolute. Benton's face had lost all trace of warmth. Chairwoman Bell fixed her gaze upon him. "Mr. Benton?" Benton adjusted his shirt cuffs. "That recording has been tampered with." Marcia interjected before Maya could respond. "A forensic analysis is underway. However, the file's metadata is consistent with the date Grace Holloway reported it. Preliminary examination has revealed no evidence of alteration." Cole shifted uncomfortably behind Benton, his breathing shallow.
Maya turned to him. Officer Cole, yesterday you stated you were acting upon information received through the system. The system is now indicating something different. Did Harold Benton instruct you to deliver that alert on the occasion of my wedding? Cole's attorney, now seated beside him, grasped his arm. Do not respond. Cole looked towards Benton. Benton did not reciprocate the gaze. That subtle act of abandonment conveyed more than any confession ever could. Maya observed Cole's understanding dawn. She closed the file resting before her. This chamber has heard sufficient evidence to warrant immediate preservation of evidence, suspension, and referral for further investigation. The pertinent question now is whether this county will prioritize safeguarding a reputation or protecting the individuals who have been harmed under its purview. Chairwoman Bell addressed the council, her voice heavy with import. We will proceed to a vote on the emergency suspension of Harold Benton, pending a comprehensive investigation and referral to state and federal authorities. Benton stood. You are making a grave error. Maya met his gaze across the room. No, she stated. We are rectifying one. The vote was unanimous. As the gavel fell, Benton's meticulously maintained composure finally fractured. Not audibly, not dramatically, but just enough for everyone present to perceive the individual beneath the veneer of the suit. Cole stared down at the table, utterly silent, caught between the deception he had perpetuated and the truth now advancing towards him. Cole remained motionless as the gavel sounded. He sat behind Benton's table, his hands clasped so tightly that his knuckles had turned white. Around him, the council chamber transitioned from stunned silence to a flurry of activity. Reporters spoke rapidly into their mobile devices. County staff began gathering documents. Benton's attorney leaned in close, speaking at a rapid pace. Yet, Benton stared straight ahead, as if the entire assembly had personally betrayed him. Mia's attention was fixed on Cole, not Benton. While Benton had engineered the entire scheme, it was Cole who had entered the church. Cole was the one who had held the incriminating document. Cole had looked at Mia in her wedding attire and chosen to prioritize official documentation over human integrity. Chairwoman Bell announced a brief recess for the preparation of the emergency suspension order. Benton rose immediately. This is pure politics, he declared, his voice projecting loudly enough for the entire room to hear. The entire affair. Maya offered no response. Benton turned to face Cole. Say nothing. For the first time, Cole did not offer a perfunctory nod. Benton registered this subtle change. His expression hardened. Officer Cole. Cole slowly raised his head. You stated it was legitimate. Benton's attorney tugged at his sleeve. Do not engage. Cole pulled his arm away. You asserted the alert had been verified. Benton moved closer, lowering his voice, though not sufficiently to be inaudible. You followed procedure. No, Cole responded, his voice strained. I followed you. The room fell silent once more. Maya sensed Isaiah shift his weight beside the wall, alert but composed. Jonathan Reed closed one file and opened another. Marsha Lane restarted the recording device without a word. Benton surveyed the room, appearing to realize that too many individuals had overheard his exchange. His face instantly smoothed. Officer Cole is experiencing emotional distress. Cole let out a short, sardonic laugh. Is that what you call it now? His attorney whispered urgently. Travis, cease speaking. Cole continued to stare at the table, his breathing becoming uneven. He told me she was a threat. He said if she assumed that position, competent officers would jeopardize their careers. He claimed she was implicated in fraudulent activities and that the council was being deceived. Maya's chest tightened, but she maintained her silence. Cole then looked at her, no longer with arrogance, but with confusion, shame, and an emotion that bore a striking resemblance to fear. You were trembling, he stated, at the church. Maya's voice was soft. Yes, I believed it signified guilt. No, she corrected. It signified that I was being accused of murder in front of my entire family. The words landed with considerable impact. Cole averted his gaze. Jonathan rose. Madam Chair, before this proceeds further, Officer Cole has legal counsel present. Should he elect to make a statement, it should be voluntary and officially recorded. Cole's attorney stated, My client will not be making a statement. Cole looked at him. I am Travis. I said, I am, referring to his own identity. The attorney sat back, visibly annoyed. Chairwoman Bell spoke with deliberate care. Officer Cole, you understand that anything you say may be relayed to external investigators? Cole swallowed. Yes, ma'am. Maya studied him. There was no triumph to be found in this situation. Only a man reaching the precipice of a chasm he helped to excavate. Cole stated, Benton provided me with the file on the morning of the wedding. He continued, The alert originated from a secure source and necessitated public disclosure prior to her taking vows, which would have generated political sympathy. A low murmur rippled through the room. He instructed me to emphasize the homicide aspect, Cole elaborated. He said that fraud alone would not sway the assembly. He believed her constituents would defend her unless they doubted her character first. Aunt Denise, seated further back, covered her mouth. Maya did not turn around. She was unable to bear the weight of her aunt's sorrow and maintain her own composure simultaneously. Cole's voice lowered. He advised me that if Isaiah Brooks became confrontational, I should ensure the cameras captured it. He suggested it would discredit both of them. Isaiah's facial expression remained unchanged, but a discernible shift occurred in his eyes. Maya inquired, Did you know who I was? Cole shook his head. No, I knew your name. I was aware Benton resented your appointment. I was unaware they had already designated you as chief. He informed me you were a political appointment, and I believed him. Cole nodded once. I wanted to. That admission was more disquieting than a mere excuse, and more truthful than a denial. Maya opened the personnel file that Jonathan had placed before her. A yellow tab marked Rachel Cole's name. There is something further you need to see, she announced. Cole appeared apprehensive. Maya slid the file across the table. 2 years ago, County Road 18, a serious vehicle accident. An adult female was trapped. The first individual on the scene remained unidentified due to an ongoing undercover operation nearby. Cole stared at the page. Maya did not sensationalize the account. She did not seek to re-experience it for the assembled crowd. She simply stated, The report indicates the rescuer was wearing plain attire and protective eyewear. It notes she sustained a burn to her wrist. Cole's face went vacant. Maya lifted her left wrist. The marks from the restraints at the church still encircled her skin, but beneath them was an older, curved scar. Cole looked at it. His mouth opened, but no sound emerged. Mia stated, Rachel Cole was your sister. The chamber seemed to recede around him. Cole whispered, No. Mia lowered her hand. Yes. He stared at the scar as if it had traveled across 2 decades and struck him directly. You, he uttered. Maya's expression did not soften. Cole's face contorted, but he did not weep. Not entirely. Something more profound occurred. He resembled a man who had realized that tears would be insufficient. My mother prayed for the woman who rescued Rachel, he stated. Every Thanksgiving, she still does. Maya held his gaze. Yesterday, you fastened restraints over the very scar she prays about. The pronouncement silenced the entire assembly. Cole brought one hand to his mouth. His shoulders trembled once, then stilled. When he spoke again, his voice was barely audible. I had no idea. No, Maya replied. You did not inquire. He looked down at the table. I am sorry, he confessed. Maya did not respond immediately. She recalled the imposing church doors, the gasps of the congregation, the doubt in Aunt Denise's eyes, the cold metal biting into her wrist, the rhythmic tapping of the baton against the polished pews. Sorry felt like a minuscule cup offered to a raging inferno. Finally, she said, Regret might save your soul, Officer Cole. It will not erase your signature. Cole nodded, his spirits sufficiently broken to grasp the truth. He then addressed Chairwoman Bell. I will cooperate fully. Benton rose again. This is coercion. He is unstable. Cole turned towards him. No, I was useful. That is different. Benton's face twisted for a fleeting second. Cole continued. The prior alerts, Civic Path, Voss. I don't know the entirety of it, but I know names. I know who carried the documents. I know which officers received calls before records were altered. Jonathan leaned forward. Are you prepared to provide that information under oath? Cole looked at Maya one last time, then at the scar on her wrist, and finally at the recording device on the table. Yes, he affirmed, under oath. Mia settled back slowly. There was no applause, no triumphant celebration, only the heavy, resonant sound of a falsehood losing one of its accomplices. Outside the chamber windows, the afternoon sun cast long shadows across the courthouse lawn. Within, Benton's formidable empire had not yet crumbled, but one of its entry points had been opened from the inside. By the close of the day, Harold Benton was no longer occupying his office. The county suspension order was formally issued before sunset. His access card was promptly deactivated. His departmental phone was collected, and 2 representatives from independent oversight sealed his desk, computer, and file cabinets. Benton stood in the hallway adjacent to the chief's suite, his attorney by his side, appearing less like a commanding officer and more like a man who had misplaced the very space where people once feared him. Maya observed from a distance. She did not smile. Benton adjusted his cufflinks, as if dignity could be restored through sheer habit. You believe this absolves you, Chief Williams? Maya moved closer, but maintained a respectful distance. No, a badge does not confer purity. It merely reveals what already resides within an individual. His eyes narrowed. You are young. You have no comprehension of what this county truly is. I am aware of its transformation under men who assumed no one would ever scrutinize the records. Benton leaned in slightly. Be mindful. Reformers have a tendency to burn out quickly. Isaiah took a single step forward, but Maya raised her hand without looking at him. I am being mindful, she stated. That is precisely why you are being removed by official decree, not by any outburst of emotion. For the first time, Benton was rendered speechless. Across the hall, Cole sat in a conference room with his attorney, Jonathan Reed, Marsha Lane, and 2 state investigators. His statement had already commenced. He provided names, dates, the officers who had received envelopes, the supervisors who had authorized corrections, and the locations where Darrow Voss had met with apprehensive business owners. He did not solicit sympathy, nor did he receive any. By nightfall, the initial referrals had been dispatched. The State Attorney General's office initiated a criminal inquiry. Federal financial investigators were alerted regarding Civic Path holdings. Darrell Voss's financial accounts were flagged for preservation. The county's Information Technology Department froze all warrant alert logs, correction notifications, and deleted administrative notations. Every case previously designated as a clerical error over the past 5 years was placed under independent review. At 9 o'clock that evening, Maya finally entered the chief's office. It did not yet feel like her own. Benton's lingering presence was evident in the polished desk, the leather chair, and the framed commendations adorning the walls. A stale aroma of expensive cologne and old coffee permeated the air. Maya stood in the doorway for an extended moment before walking to the wall behind the desk and removing Benton's favored framed slogan, "Order before optics." Isaiah watched her. "What will you place there?" Maya opened her bag and retrieved a sheet of paper. It was a simple statement, printed in stark black letters. "A badge is not a weapon. It is a promise." Isaiah read it and nodded. "Your father would have appreciated that." "He would have corrected the font," Maya remarked, a hint of levity in her voice for the first time in days. Isaiah chuckled softly.
Grace Holloway entered, carefully balancing a stack of files against her chest. "Chief Williams." Maya turned. "Come in, Miss Holloway." Grace glanced at the empty space on the wall, then at the paper in Maya's hand. "They inform me my transfer has been rescinded." "It has," Maya confirmed. "You are being reassigned to the transparency unit." Grace blinked. "We have a transparency unit?" "We do now." Grace's eyes welled up, but she maintained her composure. "Thank you." Maya shook her head. "Do not thank me for restoring what should never have been taken." The following morning, Briarwood County awoke to headlines that could not be ignored. County police officials suspended amid false warrant scandal. Financial ties under review. Sheriff's office confirms multi-year audit. The narrative spread rapidly, moving from television screens to casual conversations in diners, from church halls to barbershops, from kitchen tables to small businesses that had previously paid silently, believing silence was a less costly alternative to shame. But silence was no longer inexpensive. Calls began to arrive before 8 o'clock. A bakery owner inquired if her husband's old warrant could be re-examined. A retired nurse asked whether a fraudulent alert from 3 years prior could be expunged from her employment record. A contractor presented a folder secured with a rubber band, stating he had waited 5 years for someone to inquire. By noon, Maya had instituted a public intake process. No crowds in the hallways, she instructed her staff. No demanding that individuals recount their painful experiences at a front desk. Utilize private rooms, issue written receipts, assign case numbers, and ensure follow-up dates are provided. If they entrust us with their story, we will treat it as critical evidence. One supervisor asked, "Do we have sufficient personnel for this?" Maya looked at him. "We will." The reforms commenced with small, unglamorous changes. Every warrant alert now mandated verification by 2 individuals. Inactive accounts were promptly terminated. Any alteration to a citizen's record generated a permanent log that local administrators could not erase. External fees associated with criminal records were prohibited unless explicitly authorized by statute and subsequently reviewed by the council. Whistleblower complaints were rerouted outside the standard departmental chain of command. It was not the work of dramatic pronouncements. No one cheered for policy amendments. But Maya understood that this was the crucible where genuine justice either thrived or perished. By afternoon, Cole's badge and service weapon had been collected pending the outcome of the investigation. He departed the building through the main entrance, not in handcuffs, not yet, but stripped of his official authority. Reporters called his name. He offered no response. At the base of the steps, he paused upon noticing Maya standing near the entrance. "I provided them with everything I know," he stated. "I understand it won't rectify what I've done." "No," Maya affirmed. "It will only determine whether you continue to cause harm after grasping the truth." Cole looked at her wrist, then away. "My sister wishes to express her gratitude." Maya's expression remained composed, but her voice softened slightly. "Tell her to live her life fully.
That is sufficient, thanks. Cole swallowed hard. And you? I am not your absolution, Officer Cole. He nodded as if the words pained him because they were just. I comprehend. Begin there, Maya advised. He walked away, diminished from the moment he had entered her life. That evening, the county council approved emergency funding for an independent review board. Elaine Porter was retained to continue tracing the flow of Civic Path's financial assets. Jonathan Reed began preparing official notices for victims. Grace trained 2 staff members on the protocols for preserving complaint documentation. Isaiah coordinated with state investigators to ensure the sheriff's office could secure evidence without encroaching on jurisdictional boundaries. Maya moved through the building, room by room, until the activity subsided. Near midnight, she returned to the chief's office. The new paper sign was affixed to the wall, temporary but clear. Her father's letter rested on the desk beside a folder filled with names. Isaiah appeared in the doorway holding 2 paper cups of coffee from Maya's diner. You forgot dinner, he observed. I remember justice. That is not a food group. She accepted the coffee, and for a moment they stood together in the dimly lit office, free from the scrutiny of cameras, legal counsel, or accusations. It was simply a husband and wife whose wedding celebration had yet to be concluded. Isaiah looked at the folder. How many? 26 confirmed, Maya replied. More are expected. And Benton is not finished, she added. Suspension is merely the opening of the door. Isaiah nodded. Then tomorrow, we continue forward. Maya looked at the sign on the wall. A badge is not a weapon. It is a promise. For years, Benton had treated that promise as something he could barter, manipulate, or simply file away. Now, the files were open. The illicit money was being brought into the light, and the individuals he had presumed would remain silent out of shame were beginning to find their voices. Maya touched the edge of her father's letter. The system had not yet healed. Not entirely. But for the first time in a considerable period, Briarwood County had ceased to bleed in silence. 1 month after the interrupted wedding, New Hope Baptist Church reopened its doors. This time, no patrol cars idled outside. No officers stood in the aisle holding a file. No false warrant loomed over the sanctuary like lingering smoke. The afternoon sun streamed through the stained glass windows, casting hues of blue, gold, and crimson across the aged wooden pews. Maya Williams stood in the small bridal chamber, observing her reflection in the mirror. The same ivory gown had been meticulously cleaned and pressed. The tear near the hem had been repaired with such skill that only she knew where the damage had occurred. Around her bouquet, her father's white handkerchief was neatly folded, just as it had been before everything changed. Aunt Denise stood behind her, dabbing at her eyes even before the ceremony had begun. Maya saw her in the reflection. Aunt Denise, I understand, she began. Her aunt held up one hand. I promised I wouldn't start crying prematurely. That's not what I meant. Aunt Denise lowered her hand. The room fell silent. Maya turned to face her. Her aunt's voice trembled. I doubted you in that church. You were afraid. I was wrong. Aunt Denise stepped closer. Fear can offer an explanation, my dear, but it does not excuse the action. I should have known your character better than their documents. Maya looked down at the bouquet. For weeks, those words had resided within her, awaiting a moment to find expression. Finally, she spoke. It hurt. Aunt Denise nodded, tears tracing paths down her face. I know. Maya allowed the silence to linger for a moment. Then she reached for her aunt's hand. But we are still here. Aunt Denise squeezed her fingers. Yes, we are in the sanctuary. The pews filled with grown men and women who had navigated the past month in their own unique ways. Grace Holloway sat near the front in a navy dress, her posture more upright than it had been in the records room. Marcus Reed stood near the side aisle with his camera, this time capturing joy rather than distress. Elaine Porter sat with a program in her lap, her glasses perched on her head. Jonathan Reed conversed quietly with Reverend Samuel King near the pulpit. Business owners who had stepped forward during the examination convened, not as Exhibit A for their troubles, but as individuals whose identities were being restored. Isaiah, clad in a dark suit, stood at the altar, appearing more weathered than a month prior, or perhaps simply more truly perceived. Sheriff Isaiah Brooks had dedicated weeks to orchestrating the investigators, safeguarding every piece of evidence and standing by his wife's side as the county grappled with the extent of the corruption. Yet, as the organ music commenced, he was merely a man awaiting the woman he adored. The doors parted. Maya entered the aisle. This time, there was no collective intake of breath, no hushed murmurs of disbelief. The entire congregation slowly rose, exuding a silent reverence that needed no sound. Maya proceeded down the aisle, passing the very pew where Aunt Denise had once cast doubt upon her, the spot where Cole had presented a fabricated photograph, and the corner of the wooden bench that had left a bruise on her side. She acknowledged it all, yet nothing deterred her. Upon reaching Isaiah, he gently took her hand. His thumb grazed the fading marks on her wrist, nearly mended. "Are you ready?" he murmured. Maya's gaze swept from the altar to the church doors behind her. "Yes," she confirmed. "This time, I am." Reverend King opened his Bible. "Some commitments are deferred, not due to faltering affection," he declared, his voice resonating through the hall, "but because truth needed to surface first." A soft chorus of amens rippled through the sanctuary. The ceremony resumed from its interruption. "Maya Williams," Reverend King proclaimed, "do you take Isaiah Brooks to be your husband in lawful matrimony, to stand with him in sincerity, through tribulations, with compassion, and in the endeavor to forge a life that honors God and each other?" Maya met Isaiah's eyes. Her mind drifted to the patrol car, the rear entrance, the records office, the council chambers, the protracted evenings with forgotten coffee and scattered documents. She recalled Benton's voice on the recording, Cole's expression upon seeing the scar, Grace's trembling hands, and her father's letter. She envisioned every individual who had purchased their liberty because someone had transformed the law into a paid passage. Then, a tearful smile graced her face. "I do." Reverend King turned to Isaiah. "Isaiah Brooks, do you take Maya Williams to be your wife in lawful matrimony, to stand with her in sincerity, through tribulations, with compassion, and in the endeavor to forge a life that honors God and each other?" Isaiah's eyes sparkled. "I do." The atmosphere in the room seemed to exhale. As Reverend King declared them husband and wife, the congregation erupted in applause. It wasn't the boisterous sound of a crowd, but a deep, resonant, and well-deserved ovation. Elder women dabbed their eyes. Men not prone to tears cleared their throats and looked upwards. Antoinise pressed both hands to her chest. At the reception in the church's fellowship hall, the menu featured fried chicken, green beans, cornbread, potato salad, sweet tea, and peach cobbler from M's Diner. Initially, conversations were subdued, gradually blossoming into livelier exchanges as the evening progressed. Laughter returned to the room, like a guest who had been patiently awaiting an invitation. Grace approached Maya near the cake display. "I wasn't certain if I should attend," Grace admitted. Maya offered a gentle smile. "You were instrumental in ensuring my return." Grace looked down, a touch embarrassed. "The initial review notices were dispatched this morning. 12 families, I understand," Grace continued. "One woman called and simply wept. She mentioned that no one from the county had ever offered her an apology before." Maya's smile softened, tinged with a more serious mien. "Then we have more work to accomplish." Grace nodded. "Monday. Monday." Across the hall, Marcus lowered his camera and remarked to Isaiah, "I guarantee this rendition of the wedding video is superior." Isaiah chuckled. "I sincerely hope so," Jonathan interjected, raising the cup of sweet tea. "To clean records and completed vows," Elaine added, "and to never trusting a spreadsheet without corroborating receipts." Even Maya found herself laughing at that. Later, as guests began to disperse into the balmy evening, Maya and Isaiah stepped outside onto the church steps. The Georgia sky was painted with streaks of purple at its edges, and the air carried the scent of freshly cut grass, magnolias, and the lingering aromas from the fellowship hall kitchen. For a time, neither spoke. Isaiah gazed towards the parking lot. "Does it still ache?" Maya followed his gaze to the very spot where Cole's patrol car had been stationed a month earlier. She could still vividly recall the sound of the door closing, the cold metal encircling her wrists, the hushed uncertainty of those who wondered if the falsehood might hold true. "Yes," she replied, "but now it has meaning." Isaiah took her hand. "What happens next?" Maya's eyes turned towards the distant courthouse, obscured by the deepening shadows of Briarwood streets. Benton's investigation remained ongoing. Civic Path's financial records were still being meticulously examined. More individuals would undoubtedly come forward. More reputations would require vindication. Justice, she had come to understand, did not descend like a thunderclap, concluding its work in a single decisive blow. It arrived akin to dawn, gradually revealing what the darkness had sought to conceal. "Next," she stated, "we honor our commitments." The following Monday, Chief Maya Williams entered the county police building, her wedding ring glinting on her finger and her father's letter tucked away in her desk. The temporary paper sign adorning the wall behind her had been replaced by a framed official one. "A badge is not a weapon. It is a pledge." She paused beneath it before commencing her day. Beyond her office door, telephones rang, files were opened, and individuals who had lived in fear for years began to speak their truth. A deceit had opened the church doors, but it was truth that escorted her back down the aisle. The fundamental lesson of this narrative is that truth may face delays, but it should never be abandoned. Maya's journey served as a powerful reminder that injustice frequently conceals itself behind bureaucratic processes, official attire, titles, and authoritative pronouncements. True courage emerges when a single individual resolves not to be defined by a falsehood. Authentic power lies not in degrading others or shielding malfeasance. Genuine strength is the steadfast resolve to remain composed, to diligently gather facts, and to wield justice not as a tool for retribution, but as a means to safeguard those who have been silenced. A badge, a title, or any position of authority is never to be considered a weapon. It represents a sacred commitment to serve with unwavering honor. Thank you for accompanying this story to its conclusion. If it resonated with you, I would be genuinely grateful to hear your reflections on the narrative, the emotional flow, or any aspect that lingered with you. Every comment you share contributes to shaping subsequent stories into ones that are more authentic, affecting, and meaningful. Furthermore, if you possess a compelling or significant personal story, please feel at liberty to submit it to the channel. It may very well become the next narrative to touch and inspire countless others. This presentation is a work of pure fiction, brought to life with the aid of artificial intelligence. All characters, occurrences, and circumstances are entirely imaginary and do not reflect any real individuals or actual events. The content is designed solely for the purpose of storytelling and emotional illustration.